Today on Aging Untold, Social Security 101, when you should start taking it and what does waiting really get you?
I think a lot of people make their decision based on fear.
We'll break down the basics so you can make the right call. Then, they care for loved ones every day, but who's caring for them?
I have a lot on my plate. I do.
We'll look at the support and strategies caregivers desperately need. And the gift of life and hope.
There's no feelings in the world that can describe what Jamie did to my family.
We introduce you to someone who literally gave a part of themselves to change a friend's life. Experts with advice and solutions. You're watching Aging Untold with Aging Well Coach Catherine Ambrose, gerontologist Sam Craddock, aging expert Amy O'Rourke, and board-certified physician Dr. Ray Rogers. We're all getting older. It's about time we talked about it.
Welcome to Aging Untold. Let's talk Social Security. Many of us are counting on it. In fact, in 2025, nearly 69 million Americans received benefits each month, and with all the rules and options, it can be tough to know when the right time is to apply. Amy, what's the first thing we should consider before applying for Social Security?
I think the first thing I'm not going to say is go to Social Security and find out how much you're making. I think the first thing you do is look at what you're spending. How much are you spending every month, and work up a budget, and then go to ssa.gov and look at how much you're going to be bringing in. What Social Security is, it's the federal Social Security retirement income program, retirement, disability, survivor benefits, dependent benefits. Primarily today we're talking about retirement benefits. You can get money as early as 62 and as late as 70. The longer you wait, the more money you make. But making sure that that income and your expenses, and looking at when you are not working anymore, working less, can you live within your means?
Yeah, I think a lot of people make their decision based on fear and what they hear, all this conjecture of it's not going to be there, and so they go ahead and they try and grab as much as they can early. And if you've got longevity, maybe, and you're still wanting to work, maybe waiting longer to apply is better because you will get more monthly. But if you're in ill health and you're already not looking to work, apply earlier, but do it based on your own needs, not based on what you're hearing in the news or what you're hearing other people say.
So, but should we really be depending on Social Security as our retirement?
No.
I mean, shouldn't it just be one of the working parts to it?
That's
and I
right.
think people have the misunderstanding. They think, oh, I'm just going to live off my Social Security.
You're not going to live very well if you're living on just your Social Security. So, yeah.
I think it has to come to education. We have to sit down and talk about these are all the different tools that you have at your expenditure at the time of retirement.
Right.
And that's just one of them.
Well, and you can do that with younger people, but the truth is that many people are living on their Social Security.
That's right.
And they might be really struggling. I like what you said about fear, because not only is it confusing, but there's so much fear. And, you know, bad news sells. And so a lot of times people are really plugged into the bad news, and it can be just hype, and it's the way the sausage is getting made, you know, possibly in politics. And people can get really fearful.
And the best antidote for fear is getting into reality. So you go on ssa.gov and you set up an account, no matter how old you are. You're 19, 20, 50, doesn't matter.
That's right.
Set it up right away and look at, do you have the 40 required work quarters? And then how much are you going to pull? And then get somebody that's really good at math. Get an accountant or a financial advisor, somebody to help you run the numbers to see what, like we were saying,
Right.
Can I do better? Some of the financial people say, yeah, draw it early and invest it. I don't know what you should do, but I know what we're doing, and that's what I think the important thing is.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's good to understand what was Social Security designed for to start with, and it was to keep our aged community from being completely impoverished. It wasn't to be your end-all be-all, but for those that had limited amounts, it was to prevent that impoverished. Back in the day when our aged community actually lived in what was called the poor folks' homes, that existed then, and so it was to keep that from happening. It wasn't to be the only thing that you would have.
Yeah, I'm thinking about you, Ray, with your parents, and I don't know if you've done this or not, but I'd want you to sit down with them and go onto their online account with them and know their password and look at their information, because once they kind of lose their cognitive ability and you want to run interference, as you will, like with Social Security, you'll have a hard time doing it without going through an extra step of becoming their representative payee.
Right, and you have to do that. And then remember, if you're widowed or widower, you could probably draw off of your spouse as well. So making sure you do those kind of things. If you've been divorced a number of times, but each marriage lasted 10 years, you can pick whichever one had the highest income. So there are ways to pull your amounts that you draw monthly up.
I think at the end of the day, it becomes about education, planning, and empowering so that you know the right decisions to make.
Right, so there's less fear, less anxiety. You do know reality so that you know what to do next. And altogether, that's going to make aging feel steadier versus scarier.
Yeah, and if you're sitting out there and you're thinking, well, I was married for over 10 years and I don't want him to know that I'm going to draw on it, they won't know.
He won't know.
He won't know.
He doesn't
So if you're
get
sitting
get
out
the
there-
memo. Or she doesn't
Or
get the
she
memo.
doesn't get the memo.
So,
Yeah.
and that's really good to know. Unfortunately, Social Security was sold to many, many people in our age community now as their retirement plan. And so that's what a lot of people banked on, and that's why we see a lot of people that are really struggling with only having that. Our younger people are planning a little bit better now, and they're trying to put away for that rainy day because they're fearful that it won't even exist. The program will be
Well,
gone.
we hope so, because there's a lot of retirees that have savings now, and they say that younger boomers and Gen X, not as much. So I think it's different for everybody, but at least we're talking about this more. It's really important.
Still ahead, they're unpaid, overwhelmed, and burning out. But who's helping them?
It's having to be everything to everyone.
We'll explore what it really takes to lift up the family caregivers holding it all together. But first, when your medical team gives you mixed messages,
Do not accept somebody just telling you something. They need to tell you why, and there has to be a thought process with it.
we'll reveal the strategies to cut through the confusion and take control of your health.
You trust your doctors and follow their guidance. But what happens when they're not on the same page about your care? It's confusing, stressful, and it can leave patients feeling stuck. Dr. Ray, you've been on both sides of this as a doctor and as a caregiver. What should patients do when they're caught in the middle?
Well, first of all, they need to have an honest conversation with their physician, and the physician needs to outline not only what they're saying, but why. Tends to be a why and the reasoning on what they're thinking. And so you have to remember nowadays, it's a partnership. Do not accept somebody just telling you something. They need to tell you why, and there has to be a thought process with it. And so that conversation has to take place. Also, bring somebody else with you to have another set of ears, and then write down and have your own set of questions. Sometimes you may have to have a repeat visit because you need to think about the things that you are being told so that you can research those and then come back. But the other thing is physicians, you have a primary care doctor and they may send you to a specialist. That specialist is a referral. That referral will send back to that doctor, letting them know what they are finding. And you can also have the doctors to talk.
Right, but what happens if both of them have such differing opinions that one of them saying, yes, do this treatment, and the other one saying, absolutely not? And who do you go with? And I think that's when it's really super confusing,
But I think
because
you
the
make them
cardiologist...
tell you why.
Oh, I completely agree. Tell me why. But if the cardiologist is telling me this and the primary care is telling me this, who do you listen to at that point?
Well, I think if it's my heart, I'm probably going to listen to my cardiologist.
Okay.
And that's where you draw the line. It's like, don't refer to a specialist and then you're not going to listen to what they say. They are the specialists. So you have to give them some credit because that's all that they're studying on. But also, they need to tell you, if I do this, how is that going to change my outcome or my treatment, or is it not going to? So we have to know exactly why are we doing what we're doing.
I remember having a friend of mine in the hospital, and this goes to what you're saying and also what you're saying, and he had an infected toe. And the surgeon wanted to remove the toe, and his podiatrist thought he should wait. And he slowed it down for about 24 hours and decided to do the more conservative thing and leave and not have his toe removed. But it was very stressful. And both doctors were very respected and very listened to, but it was a hard situation to manage.
On that situation there, I see the podiatrist saying, I understand the dynamics of what happens when you lose that toe. And I see the surgeon saying, I understand what happens if that infection continues to spread. And so
how can we bridge that gap?
You could always slow things down for yourself or when you're advocating and say, we're really confused because we're hearing this and we're hearing this from these different sources. Can you confer and decide what the
other thing is, go get a third opinion.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Put the plan in place, listen to what's going on, ask your questions, and always ask your doctors to talk to each other. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
We do it all the time.
Coming up, one family's miracle moment.
My daughter gets to live the rest of her life like a normal kid, which is amazing.
All thanks to a friend who stepped up when it mattered most. But first, the growing toll of caregiving.
We're all going to be touched by the caregiving experience one way or another. They deserve our support.
We get an up-close look at the emotional and physical cost of caring for others.
Welcome back. Caring for a loved one can be exhausting and at times isolating. And if you're doing it, you're far from alone. About 1 in 4 Americans is caring for a relative with serious medical needs, and most aren't getting paid a dime. Heather Graff is in Maryland with one woman juggling it all and shows us why advocates say the caregiving crisis isn't coming, it's already here.
It's just past 6 a.m. on a rainy morning in Maryland.
The day is the 13th.
And Pamela Talley has been awake for hours.
Cold coffee, it still works.
Cooking, cleaning, prepping, packing, and generally going nonstop.
Good morning.
Once her son is awake, he's the priority. Xander is autistic and has minimal language skills.
Ready?
His daily routine, largely reliant on his mom.
Have a good day.
For Pamela, there is no time to waste.
One down.
A caregiver not just for her child, but her husband as well. You see, Kenneth Talley has Alzheimer's disease.
This is his memory patch.
And by 8:30 a.m., Pamela's focus has shifted to her spouse's medication management, blood pressure monitoring, upcoming doctor's appointments, and personal grooming.
So you got a lot on your plate.
I have a lot on my plate. I do. He was my co-pilot, you know? We co-piloted this life together. And I thought, how many more memories are we gonna have? You know, how am I gonna support the whole family through this?
Such is the demanding life of a family caregiver. And as of 2025, the National Alliance for Caregiving says 63 million Americans are doing just that. This new report warns of a dramatic increase in the number of caregivers nationwide, up by 20 million since 2015, as people are living longer and the U.S. population is aging.
Is there a caregiving crisis in this country?
Absolutely. There's an urgent crisis in this country.
Jason Resendez is the NAC president and says the organization's research also revealed family caregivers are stretched thin. Despite having virtually no medical training, they spend on average 27 hours a week caring for loved ones with chronic health conditions. Meanwhile, emotional and economic strain are widespread among the caregivers themselves. Pamela knows that struggle because she stopped working years ago when it became clear her son needed more support, and her husband is now retired. In fact, when we shared with her this AARP study that found family caregivers spend an average of $7,242 annually, Pamela said this.
When we think about safety equipment, adaptations, bringing in help, the cost can be a lot higher than that.
For Pamela, it's still a constant juggle. But since Kenneth is a veteran, they eventually secured some in-home assistance through the VA.
Companion care coming today at 10 o'clock.
A stopgap for this family, but not a solution. She says it's past time for this country to act.
We're all going to be touched by the caregiving experience one way or another. They deserve our support.
I'm sure life looks different to her than what she was expecting, and that is real love, taking care of her family.
But the toll that that's taking on her, man, you know, they had a study, Ohio State and the National Institute of Aging, and caregivers, their lives are shortened by 8 years. And it's not because of the physical toll, it's because of the emotional toll. I mean, that's just it's sad.
I love the sign. She needed a hero, so she became one.
Yeah.
Her family needed the hero, and she became that for them.
And heroes do lay down their life, you know, oftentimes.
And I hope that she looks really, really good for all that she's under. And you have to remember that self-preservation is key, because you cannot help anybody else if you don't preserve yourself.
No, you could feel the love when she said he's my co-pilot.
Yeah.
He was my co-pilot. It was hard to keep watching because I just felt myself kind of welling up and thinking, I hope I can be that graceful as her.
And giving.
That's
a lot of sacrifice.
Glad they figured out and found the VA benefit to help, and that brought in the companion care that they need to give her that respite break. So that is available, and that's what everybody needs to know. Every family caregiver needs to know that there is training available. That's why I do what I do, I know, is to train those family caregivers and help them understand. And then there are opportunities for respite care, be it either nonprofits or VA. There are things that are available, and so
would they reach out to, like, Department of Aging?
The Department of Aging in any community usually knows what you can tap into.
Next, a friend who gave in a big way.
I just felt like a mom that wanted to help out a little girl.
To help a little girl live her life.
When a young girl in Missouri needed a kidney, help came from someone close. Now she's living thanks to the generosity of her mom's best friend. Reporter Caroline Hecker has the story.
I'm scared! Bree Bridges may say she's scared, but she's actually fearless. At just 5 years old, she's been in and out of hospitals more times than she can count. Diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome, leaving her without kidneys and on daily dialysis.
She's lived this life for 1.5 years of me doing dialysis every night. You know, she was going to school, she was doing all this, she was living what life she could.
Her condition landed her on the transplant list, which is where her mom's friend Jamie stepped in.
You know, I just felt like a mom that wanted to help out a little girl.
Without being asked, Jamie got tested. She was the perfect match.
I think I waited a few days and I'm like, have you heard yet? Please tell me you've heard.
On Valentine's Day, the coordinated effort began. Jamie went in for surgery to have part of her kidney removed at Barnes Jewish Hospital, while Bree waited in an operating room at Children's.
Come on!
2 months later, both are fully recovered.
My feet aren't even on it.
And Bree is living the life she's always wanted.
There's no feelings in the world that can describe what Jamie did to my family, and like my daughter gets to live the rest of her life like a normal kid, which is amazing. I can't wait to
see her grow and to be involved and just experience a lot of things that maybe she wouldn't have experienced before.
For now, Bree is catching up on being a kid.
Wow, that is really something, and how special, the best friend doing that.
That's a friend.
Yeah, what's one of the few
That's a
times
friend.
in medicine where a healthy person can help them get their life back?
Wow.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we have 2 kidneys, but we only need 1 to function.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You talk about love, and you think, what length would I go to if I loved someone? And I think, I hope that if I'm ever presented that I would do that, because it's the depth of love that is really, there's no words for it.
Right.
And you have a lot of people, they do that for even strangers.
Strangers.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, how that must make her feel, that sweet little girl just enjoying her life, and to
my
know
gosh.
that she had
Yeah.
a key part in making that possible.
Yeah.
That
When
has to be
she has a
so
child,
rewarding.
oh, so rewarding. She's going to have a child and go, she'll even know on a deeper level what was done for her.
She probably doesn't understand that right now.
No,
No,
right.
no.
She just knows I get to go play.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have to do dialysis every single night.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
single night. So they were doing at-home dialysis
Yes,
too.
yes, yes.
They weren't going to the clinics to be able to do it every night like that. But that was super cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift.
What a friend.
We're all getting older. It's about time we talked about it. Until next time on Aging Untold.
On the next Aging Untold, your loved one is gone, caregiving ends, and you feel both relief and guilt at the same time.
Sometimes the relief is that you're tired of watching that person suffer.
We'll explain why relief is a natural response and how to release the guilt that comes with it.